Lenovo XClarity Administrator version 2.0 introduces new systems management enhancements in several areas. Some of those improvements are a little harder to see in a demo, like doubling the number of managed endpoints to 1,000 systems, or significantly extending support for scripted interfaces like Ansible, Puppet, and Chef. So today, we're going to focus on a few of the major changes that are easier to see, like new resource groups, system-level user access, server pattern compliance checking, custom OS install, and job scheduling. Let's take a closer look. So from the main dashboard, one of the new items, which is pretty obvious, is this new category called resource groups. So I'm going to select in there, and we can see 3 resource groups that are identified. I've got one that we created, which is static, and then we've got 2 others which are dynamic. So a dynamic group, there's a set of rules which identify who the members of the group are going to be. For a static group, when I select into this, we can simply edit and select which objects we want to have as part of that group. So in this case, I'm going to select, let's just select a couple of additional servers here. We're going to say we're going to add that into the group. And now if we go back to the demo group, we'll see that those new systems are added in here. And also notice that we've got a combination of things in this group, both servers as well as a storage device and a switch device. So the idea of these resource groups then being able to make that an easy way to navigate through XClarity Administrator, I think really enhances the usability. But another thing that I think is really critical about these groups is the ability to use them as we perform other functions. So let's say, for example, we're going to apply firmware updates, and I was interested in that Dave demo group as kind of the target that I wanted to work on. I can simply select that group, and it takes me into those particular systems. So the ability not only to just enhance the way we navigate, but also to use these groups across XClarity Administrator, I think is really important. Another place that you might want to use the resource groups is also combined with one of the new features, which is system-level user access. So let's go over to security. And the idea here is that perhaps I have some administrators that should only have access to a certain set of systems. So now what we can do is make that happen. So we're going to go over to Resources View, and we can see at the moment I've got all resources that I'm looking at, but let's narrow it down to my HPC cluster. And you can see in this case now, for this particular set of systems, I've identified a new role group called HPC Administrator, which is going to limit access for those HPC admins to just that set of machines. And in fact, we'll take a look at that. I can go over to a different browser here that I've logged into, see that I've logged in this case now as HPC admin. And all I see is 20 systems instead of the 50-something that we saw before. And if I select into those 20 systems, you'll see further that we've identified for this particular role, we can limit the ability to access certain features. So in this case, just for example, I've limited the ability to have power control, and we can see that all of those selections are currently grayed out. So that's another good way to really extend the impact of XClarity Administrator by being able to have more users take advantage of it, but limit their visibility to those systems and features which are really valid for them. Another new feature that's visible here from the main screen is the ability to do compliance checking on configuration patterns. And so we can see from the dashboard here, we have one system that's being identified as being non-compliant. We select into that, we can see the specific system, and we can see the yellow alarm on there saying that it is non-compliant. Now, the idea here is that we're extending the capability of configuration patterns, not just to help with initial setup, but with ongoing management. So for example, let's say that part of my configuration pattern is to really lock down a system and turn off all of the USB ports, disable all USB ports. That's part of my security standard. But what might happen is that perhaps an administrator at some point in time needs to go and access a system, chooses for convenience to go out physically to the system, turn on the front USB port, put in a USB key, do some maintenance on it, but then forgets to go back and disable that port. Well, in the past, that might not show up until a security audit. In this case now, it's going to show up immediately. In this case, for this machine as an example, it's showing that it is non-compliant. I can follow in here, drill into the firmware settings, and as we scroll down here a little bit, we're going to look in on our I/O ports and specifically the USB configuration. And we see right here that it's identified that the standard is that port 1 should be disabled. But if we follow the yellow light, it's identifying that, in fact, right now it is enabled. So I can easily go back and fix that, perhaps just reapply the profile again, be able to bring the system back into compliance. Another new area is the ability to customize the operating system images for deployment. So let's take a closer look at that here. We're going to come in and select Manage OS Images. So we have several OS images that are available. We're going to look here at our Windows images, and we can see that one of the profiles that we've added here is a custom profile. So I'm going to select that one, and we're going to edit it to see what's going on here. In this case, what we've done is we've created a customized profile because in addition to installing the base operating system, we also want to install Java and Eclipse. And so we've got the basics here. We've got unique drivers identified. But what's key is on the software tab, I've identified a couple of additional software files that I want to get transferred down to the system post OS install. And then once the OS is done pushing all the data down, we also want to run a post-install script, which is actually going to go ahead and install those two packages. So, that's a way to get a little bit more customization done. We can also use unattended files. In this case, are grayed out for this particular profile, but you can identify unattended files and also some configuration settings to add additional customization into the process. So, a great way to be able to customize the OS installation process. And then the final new enhancement we wanted to cover today is in regards to job scheduling. So let's go ahead and look at the Jobs tab here. And so we've got a number of jobs that are running. Let's look at the job scheduling. We can see a few scheduled jobs we have that we run recurring basis here. But let's create a new one just to kind of show the idea. So we're going to create a new scheduled job. We have the choice here to do it either one time. We can do it on a recurring basis, setting up a schedule, or we could also do this on a triggered basis and specify a time range where we want this to be happening. So let's say, for example, that we're having a problem with the system. We want to collect service data from this device. Of course, we're always going to collect service data from the device on a hard failure, a service failure that would trigger a call home. But in this case, I want to select this particular system, and I also want to gather service data when there's a user error that occurs in the event log. So we're going to select that. We're going to say create. And so now anytime we get that, any kind of a user problem, it's going to trigger this job. We're going to collect service data on it. So that also then is a great way to really extend the impact of XClarity Administrator to handle a number of different types of things. So that's a quick rundown of some of the major enhancements available now in Lenovo XClarity Administrator version 2.0. We'll be adding some new videos covering some of those features in more detail, so check back for new additions to our demo playlist on YouTube.